Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, where I talk about things. Today, we're going to be talking about FNAF. Why FNAF? Because I like FNAF. It's a cool game and it terrifies children, so let's get started. Five Nights at Freddy's is an indie game sensation that rocked the internet in 2014. Released by Scott Cawthon, it was a horror game surrounded around animatronics coming to kill you while you are sitting helpless in an office. The game's popularity didn't really explode until the release of Game Theory's video on the lore. Most of the game's lore wasn't very apparent and required a lot of digging to find, which stayed consistent throughout the game's lifetime. FNAF also helped the rise of creators that we know of today, such as Markiplier, who is currently regarded as the king of Five Nights at Freddy's, Dawko, who is a big FNAF theorist, along with, of course, Game Theory, and also The Living Tombstone, who has made several songs on the game that are often regarded as the songs for the game. After the explosion of the game's popularity, Scott Cawthon obviously released a sequel to keep the game running, and then he released another sequel, and then a fourth game, which was meant to be the final chapter, and then he released another sequel, and then he released that other game that we don't talk about, and then he released another sequel, and another sequel, and so on and so forth until we get to the point that we are today, which is a VR game and a PlayStation 5 launch title, which we are still waiting for. For now, I just want to talk about the core 6 games? 6? 5? 6? Are we counting FNAF World? We'll just call it the first 6 games. So, editor's note, I realized in the recording of this video that it was going to take way too long for me to get the audio to explain 6 games. There's just too much to comb through, so I'm actually just going to be talking about the one, but I didn't want to get rid of this bit just because I think it worked really well. So, yeah. FNAF 1. Oh man, this game terrified me as a little 12-year-old. This game's character design, along with the game's atmosphere, was extremely effective in terrifying many children my age, me especially. But at the same time, I found this game fascinating. It was probably the only horror game that I could watch without having to pause the video or hide in the comments section. The character designs in FNAF 1 fall into the uncanny valley of just not real enough to not be human, but not real enough to be cartoonish. The game features 4 animatronics: Freddy, the bear, Bonnie, the bunny, Chica, the chicken, and Foxy, the fox. That's not really creative, is it? Freddy is seen as the leader of the group, although in the game, he's not very active or threatening until the last few nights. Bonnie, however, now I think Bonnie is probably the most terrifying out of the original 4. Bonnie was always the one that killed me, and he was just annoying. Now Chica was less scary, more of an item to be made fun of, which, if you go through the fandom, there is a lot of. Foxy, my favorite character, isn't active until night 2, and he functions differently from the rest of the animatronics. The rest of the animatronics work in a fashion where they will move around the pizzeria, and you have to watch them with your cameras to know where they are. When they get to your room, you can turn on the light and you'll see them in the hallway through your door. And if you see them there, you have to close your door, which will stop them from entering and obviously ending your run. Foxy, however, doesn't work like that. You see, Foxy only comes out if you ignore him on the cameras for too long, which he will then immediately run through your left hallway, and if you don't close the door in time, he will kill you. But if you just leave the camera trained on him all night and look at him periodically, then you don't really have to worry about him. Now, another factor of the games that I haven't mentioned yet is the power function. Every time you use anything in the game that would use power, your power goes down. And if you use several things at once, it'll go down faster. The cameras take up 1 bar. When you close a door, it takes up 1 bar. Turning on a light, 1 bar. So if you close both doors and both lights, as well as use the camera, you now have 5 bars of power, which makes your power go down very fast. This is a function of the game that keeps you on your toes and makes sure you don't just close the doors and sit in your office all night. Foxy, if he comes and bangs on your door after you effectively block him, will actually drain your power, which is very annoying. And if your power runs out, then you get this. Needless to say, me being as old as I was still terrified of this, but I don't really know how people younger than me ever reacted to the game. So to touch on that, here's my little brother who was 2 when the game came out and is now 8 years old.
So this is my take on Five Nights at Freddy's. It's a fine game. I like the Roblox one better. I like the Roblox one better because it's less scary. I don't like scary, okay? I like other games in it though. It's like Fortnite, don't make fun of me please. Overwatch. So yeah, that's my take on Five Nights at Freddy's.
Obviously, he loved the game just as much as I and the rest of the internet did. Part of the reason so many people loved the game was not only because of the original gameplay, which it's original because name another horror game that is a point-and-click adventure. The reason the gameplay was so original was because the program that Scott was using to make the game didn't support free roam, so he had to come up with a more creative way to give a horror experience. But another reason that people loved the game so much was because of the deep lore that the game had. Like I said before, the game didn't explode as much until MatPat released his video on the actual story of the games. The general story reads something like this. 5 kids at a birthday party at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza suddenly go missing. A few weeks later, the animatronics start leaking blood and mucus out of their eyes and mouth, and they begin to smell like rotting flesh. Turns out, whoever killed these kids stuffed the bodies into the suits of the animatronics. Obviously, the restaurant gets closed down, and they go out of business. That's just the beginning of the story. I'll go into more detail in another